Eminences, ladies and gentlemen, the Christ has risen. I will speak in Russian because it is one of the official languages of the conference and my mother tongue. Obviously, each one of us will have seen questions to the priest or separate pages where you can find questions to the priest. We understand that following an identification of the page, in the registration page, you can ask your questions and then receive your answers in your email. And if you haven't declared that, then that statement can be published. There is someone that answers the specific questions. This was done in the Tatiana Engine website where I have worked as an editor. However, there are others where the main editor determines who will answer. The priest may answer, then his answer is viewed and then displayed on the website. The spiritual care is very important that is done through the internet, and this is also connected to the main topic of our conference. If we ask the question, if we put the question to the priest on the Google, then we can have lots of results. And we must understand what the need is in this virtual reality and how this is faced by priests. And when reference is made to internet technology, then reference is made to innovation. I would say that this is a new form within the church, but this has already been discussed. So the question to the priest is an innovation or is it traditional? We understand that this did not arise in the 20th or the 21st century. Since the 6th century, the famous text questions was created, and that text included all the questions of the visitors. Thus, it was possible to draft questions and answers, and this can also be seen in the websites today. So the question to the priest is communicated to the priest, and the priest in his turn gives an answer. In the 14th century, there is a similar experience in the Russian church, and in the 20th century, letters to the Archimandrite Ioannis were submitted. Communication was always personal. People wrote to the priests they knew. So when reference is made to broader discussions, then we could get information from a specific person, but the person that can draw information on the Christ, on the church, this cannot be done through a specific person, but also through the books or through the cyberspace. So the personal communication has been abolished compared to the previous centuries of the Orthodox Church. In our website, reference is made to the questions to the priest, but there are some differentiations. What are the interests of the flock? we can see that there are different categories, prejudice, education of children, prayer, work, relations to our environment, but certain categories can be distinguished. First of all, the spiritual questions. When the question is asked to the priest as a spiritual father, and there is not such a numerous series of such questions. And the usual answer to this question is that you must come to church and confess to your spiritual father. The second category is related to the traditions of the church. As you understand, in the 20th century church, the tradition of the church had been interrupted and there is a gap of knowledge. So we must bridge this gap. This gap had to be bridged, and this is why people had to address someone else. And how what we must do during the fasting period, how often we must pray. There are cases where people do not know where to search for this kind of info, and they find these sites where there is this piece of information. They read it, so they refer somehow to the encyclopedia of the religious life. They're also interested in how they should behave in a specific situation. Reference is made not to the internal world, but to the environment. Sometimes people cannot take a decision on their own about a simple situation, but want to shift this responsibility to the priest. I will do what the priest will tell me. A third category are questions on personal subjects. The priest is a kind of psychologist and a friend. In these cases, people do not have anyone to talk to, and they feel this need. And sometimes people say, I want to share this with you. I want to share with you what has happened to me. And I have also encountered certain examples. People tend to speak about what happened to them sometime later, and they describe, for example, what happened to them in the meantime. Another category is when you try to compare different views. People send their question to different websites and they want to compare what will be proposed to them. So in the traditional way, in the traditional manner, there was a virtual reality as a replacement of real life, as a substitute of real life. People often did not go to church and try to do that. Don't go to church, and instead they go to the internet. There are often questions from people out of the church who try to understand certain concepts on regarding the doctrine, the dogma of the church. Perhaps they are unable to speak with the family members, with the other family members, and they feel this need to address the priest. The disadvantage of virtual communication is that it is incomplete. there are certain disclaimers on the website that that communication in this dimension cannot substitute personal communication and cannot substitute going to church. Through the website, those that are away from church or that have just entered the church start communicate with the priests. Those that are unable to go to the church talk to the priest through the internet. The priest answer the questions, and one of the priests has noted it is easier to go to church. Or some people, however, are afraid of going to church. In the internet, the communication can move along without any problems, without any issues. Virtual communication is also more familiar to certain persons. The virtual dimension allows people to try something new. They try the life of the church by submitting a very simple question, for example. There are certain questions sometimes that are tricky. They want to see whether they will be thrown out of the forum or not. If the priest gives a mild answer, then the people understand that if they go to the church, they won't be thrown away. So you don't have to get out of the house to submit a question. People tell the priest what there is in their soul. Sometimes, through the internet, people get prepared for the confession. They ask, for example, how can I speak about that in my confession? And the priest answers, as you have answered, as you have spoken here in the website. Sometimes they want to make sure that the priest gives an answer and nothing bad will happen. Virtual communication also removes any obstacles. There is not this kind of sensation that arises when you first meet someone. There is a psychological dimension. There is this kind of being ashamed before your priest, because the spiritual father, the perception of the spiritual father is that this is a person. So there is not this sense of hierarchy. The priest on the internet is a mask that facilitates this communication because it is easier for people to speak in an anonymous environment. Priests have a dual perception about these sites. They understand that this is a source of experience. They understand what concerns people, and it is also an opportunity to look back to the scriptures to see how they can answer on the internet, and it also helps them in real life because these questions will also arise in real life. This kind of communication is an opportunity to start this discussion. In conclusion, there is the following situation. There is the dogma, there is the information about Christ and the church, and this information is drawn from online sources and not on personal communication. Personal contact becomes secondary. And without real participation in the sacraments, people may know, may have, may know that they can go to church and pray, but there is no real contact with the priest. This virtual contact is not a real contact with the priest and the church. Online contact may lead to a preliminary stage. You can get some preliminary information